order to evaluate the property. Sometimes you write that historic context yourself, but in this case, we used an existing context that was created by P.A. Shippo around the historical agricultural resources of Pennsylvania. They have a whole context. There's a website, you can go read it. But there's one specific document in there around southeastern Pennsylvania historic agricultural region, which talks about the evolution of agriculture in southeastern Pennsylvania from, what do they have here, 1750 through 1690. Okay, I'm sorry, 1960. Sorry. So it's a really good read. It's about 200 pages or so. But if you're interested to know how agricultural developed in this region, you'll find it there. And what they really focus on are things like production. So you went from grain production to dairy production to other things later on, right? They like to know about labor, how the labor's on the farm changed. Land tenure, was it owned by people, or were there renter farmers that are on there? So these are the kind of things that it looks at. It also looks a lot at the building and landscapes, but not necessarily from kind of the classical, this is a beautiful example of a Greek revival building. That's not what they're interested in. What they're really interested in is demonstrate to me how the buildings evolved to match the agricultural trends which were happening in the region at that time. So that was the bar that was set for the nomination. The other thing is the geography, and that little diagram you see there on the right side, that's the original Thomas Janney land grant. It started at the Delaware River, went all the way back down to the township line. And where I put the star is Patterson Farm. So what I concern myself with in the nomination is only things would happen on the farm. It doesn't mean that there's other things that haven't happened. I mean, Helen's done a lot of documentation about the activities of the Janney in the township. Helen and Cathy and I found a lot of really interesting information about the Bailey family. Before they moved to the farm, none of that's in the nomination because the scope is really just around what happened on that piece of land during this time. Okay. So to sum it up, why does this property matter? Why is it so significant? So we make the case around it's just an exceptional continuity of agricultural use. I mean, the nomination basically starts back in 1695. Could start back in 1693 based on tax records, and said it was farmed then, and it was farmed continuously up to today. In fact, we set the period of significance from 1695 to 1960. Shippo asked us to end it at 1960 to be coterminous with the historic context. But what's in the nomination, and they know this because I told them, is all the way up to what the stewards are doing on Patterson Farm today. So we have that demonstrated. We have a lot of what's called visible evidence of agricultural change over time. You can look at the barns and see where they've been expanded. You can look at the houses and see how they changed, even the other outbuildings. So we're able to demonstrate how the landscape and especially the buildings evolved as the farms evolved. It's really kind of one of the rare surviving examples of English Quaker farming tradition. A lot of the barns that are on the National Register here in Bucks County aren't Quaker barns. They're actually German barns, or others are further north, right? So this is a really rare example of that. And probably what my favorite thing is it's really one of the rare examples of an intact agricultural landscaping viewshed. You could stand on one farm and you can look over at that other farm with almost no modern intrusions. It actually looks the way it did 200 years ago. And you can stand on the other farm and look back the other way. There's not many, I haven't seen any other places in Bucks County where you have a district that brings the two farms together. Most other nominations in Bucks County for farms are just for one farm. They're not for an entire district. So this was really important. Everybody okay?
Yeah.
All right. So how will this be used? And this actually is important because, as many of you know, we got this grant for like $800,000, I believe, in order to do some renovations to the Janney Brown farm. So this provides really practical guidance for the ongoing preservation efforts, right? We identify in the nomination which elements carry the strongest historic significance and should be prioritized for retention and repair. We also identify in there the various spatial relationships were important. So not that anybody's going to build anything between the two farmsteads. We're not so concerned about that. But when it does come to the individual buildings themselves, we identify where is the historic material, what makes this historic, in hopes that it doesn't get destroyed. And a really good example of this is the pack house, right? Which is one of the things which will be funded by that grant. And I mean, the front part of the pack house is a concrete block. It was used for vegetable packing. But what's really historically significant about it is the rear section, because the rear section is where they housed the workers. The workers came from Puerto Rico. They stayed here in the spring. They came back in the fall. There's showers back there. There's a little kitchen back there. There's a seating area. So we have to make sure whatever renovations we're doing, we're not destroying the historic significance of that back part. Doesn't mean we can't do anything to it, but we have to do it in such a way that it maintains its integrity of being a place where people gathered, where people slept, and where they ate. Okay.
Joe, or you're going to make sure that
You want to go through the slides?
Hmm?
We get questions at the end, want to go through the slides?
okay, but I'm going to forget it. That's the problem. Just can we make sure that we have somewhere in there that we hope that all buildings get retained, and that there should be some analysis by a preservation architect or preservation committee before there's any kind of changes to structures.
That's not really the role of a nomination, Helen. That's the role of, if we want to propose some type of historic ordinance overlay over top of that, that's the place to do that, but that's not the role of the nomination.
No, and in some cases, we may want to rebuild structures that have recently fallen apart, that could be restored or could be rebuilt with actual materials that are on site.
I can take it as an action to the Patterson Farm Master Plan Implementation Committee to make sure that they retain that as a recommendation, that any structural changes be reviewed by someone with preservation expertise.
Committee that I was concerned about, actually,
Sure.
because they were talking about taking out fireplace structures, and things like
I
that.
happen to know their liaison. Hang on, let me go check with them. Hello, Mr. Coyle, how are you?
I happen to be on the committee, and I never heard any conversation about taking out fireplace structures. So,
All right, let's let Joe finish on the nomination. Thank you,
let's go
Colin.
back to
Yeah.
what's the nomination process? It already began, actually, because in 2024 we renewed the determination of eligibility through PA Share. That's something that needs to be done every 5 years. It had expired, so I wrote a new determination of eligibility for the 2 individual farmsteads and submitted those, and they were accepted. So now the eligible property proceeds to the full register nomination. So the owner needs to consent. The owner is the township, and there was a motion that was carried at one of the select board meetings. I actually don't have the date on me. I wrote it to Dave, which basically said that we should prepare the nomination and that the township should submit the nomination. So I'm going to work with Jim Majewski, and he'll put the nomination into PA Share, should it be approved this evening. When that happens, PA SHPO reviews and they request revisions and they conduct site visits. So they have 60 to 90 days to get back to us. What they might do is they might say they want to visit it. They've visited before, but they might want to come out again just to confirm information that's in the nomination, or they may require some technical changes up to that. Once it passes that milestone, then it goes to be reviewed by the Pennsylvania Historic Preservation Board. And that board meets 3 times a year. They meet in February, in June, and October. And in order to be considered for one of their meetings, you have to be on the agenda 90 days in advance. So at the best case, at the very, very, very best case, right, if this thing were to go through smoothly, we could get on the October agenda for review. It's more than likely that we'll get on the February agenda of 2027 for the review. Okay. Any questions on the process?
No.
Okay. And then this year, we don't need to look through this, but I just put together, there's a lot of future research opportunities. There's a lot of things that would, yeah, if you would, left on the cutting room floor because they didn't fit the scope or they didn't fit the timeline. And so I just kind of listed some of those things here, and just things for us as the historical commission to come back to and maybe do some further research in these areas. Okay. Any
Great, thanks
other-
for doing that, Joe, because I think it gives,
Really
I think
helpful.
gave me a little bit more context. And I know Tom had a question about the people and stuff, and so I think that clarifies all of that. And I do know that you made some changes that you sent out to all of us earlier. And I do know that the stuff that Helen sent was added to it along with some other stuff that you added. So if we can have any further discussion, or we can make a motion to get this nomination submitted.
It was amazing, Joe. I can't say I read the whole thing, but I read section 8 like I was told. And took a long time just to read. So thank you for all your work, everyone.
Read that comment from Penn State on the agricultural soils or not? Did you get that from me? I sent it to you, but I'm not sure. My email's wonky again.
I don't remember getting it now. No.
It's a map that shows soils of historical significance, and it was done in like 2006. But I can send it to you, and
Okay.
you can decide whether you wish to put it in or not.
Okay.
I move that we move forward with this and send it to SHPO.
I'm just saying that Joe should have the flexibility if he wants to put that in, because it's just one sheet that could easily go in.
Sure, that's fine, but I don't think,
If you wish, I'll
Okay.
send it to you and you can make the determination.
Thank you, Helen.
It was one of the things I had meant to put on the list before. It looks like it would be it shows what kinds of soil all over the farm. What are the actual kinds of, shale and deposits are all over the farm. And then actually just where the creek there's a strip that runs down sort of where the creek is right now. Not the one that goes along Mirror Lake Road, the one that goes through the center of the farm. And
Mhm.
that is the stretch that is the field, the soil of statewide importance, and it's statewide or national importance.
Interesting.
According to
Okay.
Penn
Thank you.
State.
Yeah. That'd be good.
that's,
So
That's-
Monica, can you
I-
make it again?
yeah, that's very cool, Helen. I love it. I move that we move forward with the submission of the application to PA SHPO with the option for Joe to add the additional information from Helen if he so chooses. But I move that we submit it now and stop talking about it. It's great.
Second that.
Jeff seconds. All in favor? All in favor?
Woo-woo.
Yeah.
Joe.
Thank you, Joe. This has been an amazing amount of work for you, and we
Oh,
all
no.
really, really appreciate it.
And thanks also to Helen and Cathy for their help.
Mhm.
This last round, I got a lot of good information from Helen and also from Cathy when I reached out and I said, how do I find this? So, and, probably I would say that, one of the most significant additions that we did is what was based in the James Moon Diary, and the section where we were able to demonstrate that enslaved people lived on the farm and during the early 1700s.
That's the most important thing.
Yeah.
That the enslaved people lived on the farm.
Right.
Yes, they had slaves, but most people had slaves. And when you look at the township in 1770, most people had slaves, and they weren't even recording them. They weren't taxing on. They
Right.
weren't being taxed on them. They just used them, and the
Yeah.
number was absolutely horrific,
Yeah.
shocking to me. But anyway, the fact that the owners of our farm manumitted most of their slaves before the actual ending of
Yes.
the date when people had to manumit was pretty amazing. The fact they freed a lot of their slaves and that they gave them homes and jobs on the farm.
Yeah.
And some of them stayed for decades past that time, with the families and contributed, to the community and in a way that reflects the Quaker abolitionist sentiments and putting their money where their mouth was, instead of thinking about shipping them to Canada or sending them back to Africa, which were the
Right.
other typical answers to the problem that America had. Finley was a person in Princeton, was the man who started the African Colonization Society in it was 1819. And so he had a lot of influence over this area. And our people could have said that, well, we'll put our slaves on ships, send them back to Africa. But
Right.
they didn't. They said, no, we're going to let them live here. We're going to educate the children. We're going to make sure that they have a future. And that is super, super cool.
Yeah, I know that, it took an extra month, but I actually think the extra month was really worth it. I think especially submitting something in 2026 and being inclusive about the enslaved people that were on that property is really important. And I do thank Helen for finding it. And then when I kept asking her repeatedly,
Getting it to her.
help me find it, I kept sending her messages, no, give me more, give me more. He did, and I downloaded the original sources, which are now on the drive. So,
Well done,
yay.
guys.
And it's
And-
also inspired the historical marker. Go ahead, Joe.
I would just say, Kathy, you might want to pass that link out because if you're interested in this, it's not really a difficult read at all. It's because it's transcribed and he just,
His diary?
Yeah. Moon just documents. We met, we went to visit these families. What happens when he visits the families? Then a couple months later, and a couple months later. So it's just, and what you get to see is this progression of how their perspective on this changed. But it took them like 2 years. Took kind of consistently going after them for 2 years.
Mhm.
In a very, very polite Quaker fashion, right? But they
Yeah.
were effective
Well,
and
it's
they
cool. I
changed.
feel like we should include John Brown Sr. in this story in the ghost tour this year. 'Cause he's there and he's part of the story.
He is part of the story, and I think if I'm remembering correctly, Joe, he also owned some enslaved.
Yeah, and he
people.
gradually
Yeah, well, that's what we looked at. but I
over
think it was
like
easier.
multiple harassments.
Yeah,
Yep.
Really
Yeah.
interesting.
yeah, no, I
was
think
really-
that does add to the ghost story. And
I think it's
again,
really cool. I'm not necessarily proud of the way he handled it, to your point of how conversations and their pushing changed things. Like,
Right.
that's really cool. I love it.
It was really cool.
no, great.
I'm done.
All right. Community Foundation funded or discussed projects, just some quick updates. It was approved by the Community Foundation for us to both do the restoration, and I had actually found an estimate, God bless Dawn, for the digitization. So I asked them for a do not exceed amount so that we could also get the digitization done once we get the map done. So Monica is sort of taking it from here for me to get it to Brooklyn, to get it to the restoration. Once they get it, I think it's a 2 to 3 month process, but that is in progress and that is really exciting. The 1858 Hughes map, we're getting it restored. Yes. Sorry, I forget I have to turn that way sometimes.
And it's coming, just to reiterate, from the Community Foundation.
Correct.
Okay, because we have the first 50% payment for Jim to process. So I want to make sure he knows.
Yeah, when you put it through to process, I mean, I would copy Mega on that and then,
Oh, I can just use our credit card?
yes, you
No,
can just
I
use the
can't?
credit.
I can just, I don't need to.
And then when you send the receipt to Mega, make sure you say in all caps, Community Foundation.
Got it.
And it's not our credit card, it's the township credit card. We regulate it closely.
Yes.
And we were not the Chick-fil-A people. Moving on to the path.
I'm
I-
sorry. Chick-fil-A?
There was a Chick-fil-A charge.
Like a
on there
$5.
that We were asked if we had made it.
It was,
And it was not us. I do not use Chick-fil-A. They got a new credit card.
Yeah, it was canceled for fear of fraud.
Thank you.
Regarding the path, I asked it says my landscaper, that sounds so bougie, but I asked the landscaper we have used in the past to give an estimate, and he said he needed 2 weeks, and then after the 2 weeks, the blizzard came, so he said he cannot give us an estimate until the blizzard is gone. There's no snow there. So that is in progress. And I'd asked Dave to get an estimate too. And I know you've been away. So, and I'm sure it would be the same thing as far as snow. So it is still on the agenda, but since we wanted multiple estimates, it's just going to take a little longer.
Can I ask Monica if she would come up with something for the Eagle Scout that text or they contacted me?
Let's do it on the Slate Hill part of the
Hills.
updating. Yeah.
Because you had said the path, but is there something else you have in mind, Monica?
When we get to.
Yeah, let's
talk
do,
about
we'll talk at Slate Hill. Also, I'm still gonna have to figure out all the financials with this stuff, but because, and you guys will update on this in a second, the resource survey grant, Jeff Marshall's estimate came in a little higher than we had thought. And if there is excess that the township needs to pay, it's coming out of the community foundation. The township manager decided that. So we'll see how much we can fund out of our budget, but some of it might come out of there.
I don't agree with that. I have to say, I don't agree with that
Have
at all.
access to the deeds and the permits that were handed out after a certain date in the.
For the resources? No, I mean, the township, the state is going to pay for the whole $25,000 project. We just have to come up with the little bit of overage, I think, which was, a few $1,000s, and then the 10% match. So no, we can pay the professional because we have a grant to do so.
I don't agree. And the reason I don't agree is because Lower Makefield Township is a certified local government. And as part of being a certified local government, they have to update their historic resource survey every 10 years. It's a requirement, right? It's not an option. And therefore, they should budget to meet that requirement. The township should budget to meet the requirement. If there's an issue that we don't have enough money in next year's budget, then let's just stage the project so it goes over 2026 and 2027, and we have time to budget it. My feeling around the community foundation fund is it really should be used for educating the public, because we have no budget to educate the public, right? But yet we take that as part of our mission. And a lot of the work that is done, actually most of the money in there actually comes from the ghost tour, which is a big piece of educating the public. So that's how we actually raise the funds. And I think we should use those funds for education. I think, Cathy, at some point we should draft an allowable uses document for that fund.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. Draft
an allowable uses document for that fund. So we're really clear on what types of things it can be used for and it should not be used for.
Well, I think it's worth having a meeting with Dave and discussing it. This was a decision he made. And the matching letter went to Monica saying it was coming from the foundation. And I don't know. I think we can set parameters for what the historical commission wants to take money out of the fund for. I kind of look at it, and this is a good discussion for us to have, for kind of these special projects like that we can't get funded somewhere else, like the map. But I think we could have a discussion and set up parameters. But at the end of the day, the community foundation has its own board, and the finance director, the township manager, and I believe the police chief make the final decision. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how much control we can have.
No, I'm not trying to usurp their decision authority at all.
No. I didn't take it as that.
What I'm trying to say is, I think we should just have clear guardrails on when we dip into that fund. Else it becomes a slush fund that we don't have enough money for this, we don't have enough money for that. I think we should have more of a focus around how that money should be used. I have no problem with the map restoration, because it's a piece of our history and we could use it whenever we stand out in front of the public when we're at events, right? We could bring the map with us and we could show it off to people, say, hey, this is what it looked like in 1858, and educate them about that. It's a really important tool for that. And I'm not going to belabor this anymore because I understand it wasn't a lot of money that we needed for the CLG grant. We were just a little bit over. But in general, to me, that's just something that the township should budget for. It's their requirement.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can do it, and I would like to have, and I just felt like it wasn't the time to have the discussion. We needed to get the grant in and everything, but I don't know if the township budgeted in the township's budget for the 10% match, because if they did, which is $2,500, if they did, I did put money in our budget to also cover some of that. So that could potentially cover the overage. And then there was the insurance issue. We don't need to get into all of that. So I think I need to have a conversation with Dave about where all the money is coming from. I would rather it not come from the community foundation. And if we have extra money in our budget, I would definitely rather it come from our budget.
Understood. Okay.
So what do you want me to put?
That at a future meeting, we will have more of a discussion about what we're going to use the community foundation for and set up some parameters, at least for our requests. And that at some point in the future, I guess May, we'll talk to Dave about how exactly all of this money is going to be expended, but it's not a rush because we haven't even gotten the grant yet.
Rather not.
We would rather not use the community foundation for stuff like this. Okay, good. Township Historic Resource Survey Grant, Monica.
It's submitted. And
you.
thank you to everyone. Colin, you came in last minute with letters and amazing. Thank you. So thank you to everyone who helped get everything together. But
And when are we going to hear?
that's a great question. Stand by. I
Okay,
forgot.
it's not. Yeah,
Elaine,
you'll let us know. And then, because we have to also figure out, we need to know from the township whether we have to do an RFP or not. Because the state doesn't require it. All right. Demolition ordinance. I just like to keep this on there. It's officially a year since we got the feedback, or the Board of Supervisors got the feedback from Bucks County. So I was contemplating this, as I often do, and was also wondering, because we asked, our liaison to talk about this, and I understand things take time. Yeah. I also would like some guidance from the Board of Supervisors if they are not in support of the demolition ordinance after we put a year's worth of work into it, what they would be in support of to protect historic homes, maybe homes in general, given that apparently homes that were built in 1950, the lawyers are saying are not useful and can be torn down. Okay, cool.
And
And we would like guidance from the Board of Supervisors on how they would like us to protect historic home.
Yeah, so I am aware that the demolition ordinance remains a priority for the Historic Commission. It is not at this time a priority for the board to place onto the agenda. I will continue to make sure that the larger board remains aware that it's a tool that you're looking for.
And just also that if the board is deciding to not prioritize it, which is certainly their right, perhaps they could give us feedback as to why it was a good idea for a year and now isn't a good idea, and if they have any other good ideas they would like us to pursue.
Very well.
Thank you.
Cathy, I'd like to follow up on this point. And there's, I'm going to read from you now. I'm going to read to you now from Resolution 323, which was the resolution that formed the Historical Commission of Lower Makefield Township. And it says that the resolution of the Board of Supervisors of the Township of Lower Makefield, Bucks County, Pennsylvania, creates a historical commission for the purpose of surveying the township to designate structures and buildings which may be of historical significance and to recommend to the Township Board of Supervisors preservation of those historical structures. So I would like to say that we have already completed the first part of that historic resource survey. We have documented in that which of those buildings are historically significant. And I would like to, I think what we should do is formally document that, document the way that we think they should be protected, and send it to the Board of Supervisors. Because that is what our remit is to do, and we should do our remit, and then the Board of Supervisors can decide from there how they would like to handle it.
And I will say that I think recommendations that can be given to staff as guidance are effective, right? You know, I mean, I've seen just in my limited time, the couple of years that I was on planning, you know, that staff does get involved when there is a historic home or a home that's of an age. Historic Commission gets involved. The Historic Society as volunteers get involved. We request from the homeowners for documentation and things like that. I understand what the ordinance is trying to achieve, but we can take steps short of an ordinance in the interim, and we can just codify into staff instructions the ways that we should be behaving to be taking efforts to protect historic structures.
And
I hear
guess-
what, go ahead, Joe.
I guess what I would say is, I understand what Colin is saying, and I think in our recommendations, it shouldn't be as something as, well, there should be a demolition ordinance. But I think what we should say, because what's important is not that the demolition ordinance is important, what's the content of that ordinance, what it says. So I think we should be explicit in the way that we think that should be, that it should be protected. And to Colin's point, maybe it doesn't require an ordinance to do that. Maybe there's other things that could be done that get to that end, but in a different way.
I'm certainly open to see that. I mean, as far as, I mean, I definitely think codifying certain things with staff, but at the end of the day, we get notified late. We've more than once gotten a notification, be at this house at 8 o'clock with your cameras. We are not professional photographers, nor are we equipped to document in the ways that we have been asked to document. There's no requirements that, some of the requirements in the ordinance require documentations of the building. And at the end of the day, without some sort of, I'm thinking legal something, which I think is an ordinance, there is nothing stopping anybody from demolishing any home in this township. And that may be what, that may be what the Board of Supervisors wants.
But Cathy,
No, I'm not saying
We've
that.
gotten very mixed messages, and I think the concern, I
Sure.
went back and read the minutes from December of 2024 when they sent it to Bucks, and a lot of the issues that were raised there, or the issues that were raised there, is every building over, you know, they were worried about buildings from 1950s being protected. And they were basically, the way I read it is that they didn't think we could make recommendations because we are not knowledgeable enough. And we brought in Jeff to make recommendations, and apparently, I don't know, is he not knowledgeable enough?
There are concerns about the legal enforceability of deeming a structure based upon broad criteria to be subject to burdens on the rights of the property owner. And that's valid. There are concerns about the township asserting a certain historical significance when there are guidelines that exist at the federal and state levels establishing historical significance. And the questions of whether the town is able to, even with a very qualified individual operating under the authority of the town, to burden the rights of a property owner, right? To exercise, you know, what they can and can't do with their property. So there are valid concerns about if we pass an ordinance that contains all of these wonderful, well-intentioned protections, are we just going to cause harm to ourselves, right? Alienate people who own structures that deserve protection, and ultimately just result in lawsuits that restrict our abilities to protect them. So, you know, these are all valid concerns. This is why I'm recommending, I think Joe brought up a great suggestion of providing a document as recommendation shy of a full ordinance, right? I absolutely will speak with the other supervisors to say, are there changes we can make to this ordinance that a lot of people spend time and effort, not only in your commission, but other committees in the township? Are there changes that we can make where we can see this thing coming to fruition and being passed into law? Or if not, can we express that back to the Historic Commission? Thank you for the hard work, and give you the guidance that a less formal legal direction is the right way to do this, right?
No, I think that that is acceptable. And, you know, you're kind of coming in after there's been very poor communication between us and the Board of Supervisors, and you have been wonderful thus far, as far as trying to be communicative, and we very much appreciate that. And I would also remind, in the 2019 master plan, they didn't call it a demolition ordinance, they called it a demolition delay ordinance. And, you know, I don't know totally all of the differences, but that would at least hit some of our goals, I think. And that was something that the Board of Supervisors voted on and passed. And I don't know if anybody, I don't think anybody here, I don't know, Helen, maybe you, because none of us were on the commission in 2019
Yeah.
or 2018.
Well, or in 1995, when this came up before, when I was president, sitting in that chair, and an entire room full of people saying, "You're not doing anything to my property. It's my property."
Yeah.
Yeah, you know,
I get it.
which is very daunting as
But I also think there hasn't been a public forum for the public to speak on the issue. Because if the public came and said, we're against it, then okay.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, but you might get.
And I think we would get both.
Well,
Absolutely.
to chime in, I did some back research on the LMT Facebook page, just comments. And I think, yeah, I don't have it in front of me. It was for a different meeting I prepared it for, but it was like the top 5 interactive posts on there in the last 4 years were all people pissed about historic buildings being lost. Like that, people came out of the woodwork over those.
Yeah.
Now,
So-
people do that on the internet. It is what it is, but
Yeah.
people care.
From having dealt with that, I think that if you wanted to think about a more proactive strategy, if we have now identified buildings that are in sort of class A, 1, B, and C level, which is what many townships have done, and the Board of Supervisors wanted to assign an incentive, as I had said before, in
Yep.
tax rebates for preservation of at least a facade that is on the street or something like that, that there's a negotiation
Yeah.
that can happen when that would make this board a lot happier and generally, I think, improve
Yep.
the property values for all the township. I
And-
mean, people who own these houses have the burden of maintaining them, you know.
Yep.
Why not at least give them a slight break on that?
You raised that suggestion in the last meeting. I have a note of it. It's here in my file of things to look for an opportunity to bring up at the right time, when there's a vehicle to attach them to. So it is noted. I will say, you know, there's a lot that can be done in a positive way, right? As you update this resource map, I'm fully supportive of reaching out to residents whose properties have been identified and saying, hey, we think your property may be of historic significance before we're at a time of a sale. Can we proactively get in front of those people and pump them up about the unique and wonderful characteristics of their property and get the access to come in and photograph and all those things? So
And people did that in the office staff for us before. So I'd say before 2000, office staff was very, as soon as the plan came in, they informed us immediately of that.
I'm not ignoring you. I'm just taking a note real quick. I had
That's okay.
a good idea goblin jumped on my brain and I want to make sure I
Yeah, I think you're giving us some direction and I appreciate it. I'm not willing to put in a whole lot of effort again to
Yeah.
just be ignored and shut down.
I don't
So
think, again.
as much direction as possible. I mean, I think you're giving us some good direction and I very much do appreciate that. And we can
Thank you.
discuss for further efforts.
I just want to make 2 points. I mean, first of all, the demolition ordinance as proposed does not prohibit demolition. Doesn't, all it does is says, these are the things that have to happen before a demolition permit is issued for an historic structure. That's all it does. So the second thing I would say is that, speaking for myself here, you know, I think we tend to have an expertise in historic preservation and how to handle these properties, but I am by no means a have expertise in how to codify those things into law or practice or have you. It's not my expertise, right? So I think I would say that we should use the work that we've done, not create new work, Kathy, but use the work that we've done on the historic resource survey to identify what the historic properties are. And instead of proposing an ordinance, propose here are a set of best practices about how those properties should be handled should a demolition request be made. And let the experts decide how that gets done, whether it's an ordinance that gets done, whether they change their saldo process to get it done. I mean, we can let it go, but I just think that if we step back from this, set this high bar around an ordinance, which has concerns, the ones that Colin just, all the ones that Colin just said, he just said, look, I don't care how you get it done, but this is what needs to be done to protect, to handle these properties correctly,
And just for the record, I voted for your ordinance
Yes,
on
you
the
did.
planning commission, right?
You did,
So
yes,
I
right.
voted to support it.
it.
So I am supportive of the document as it exists.
Yeah.
Now, listen, if it came before the board while I'm on the board of supervisors, I'd have to take a new look at it with new eyes. But yeah, I think Joe's suggestion is a positive one, is take the spirit of the text of the ordinance and turn it into, at a minimum, here's just some best practices that we recommend, right? And best practices can be implemented without a law, right? We can do that as recommendations, and at least we have a positive motion instead of setting it as the goal of, well, nothing will change until there is an ordinance, right? The other thing that I will ask, and I appreciate the kind words about the working relationship that we have, let's try and shy away from ascribing past behaviors and past judgments and past relationships. The past is wonderful and worth preserving beyond 12 to 36 months or whatever the time horizon is. I just think it's better for all parties if we can just focus on the future and what we need to do moving forward. Thank you.
Chat later. All right. America 250 activities. So something else. I'm sorry, Joe.
I would like to formally make a motion that the historical commission prepare a list of historic structures based on the historic resource survey, and a list of best practices about how those structures should be handled in the event that a permit for demolition is requested, and send that to the Board of Supervisors for their consideration and discussion on how those best practices should be implemented.
Is there a second?
A second.
Monica seconds. Best practices for how to deal with it if a demolition permit is filed. So Joe moved. Huh? What's scary?
Having your house, let's say you own this historic house.
Can you turn your mic on, please?
This might be enough to make them more political than they are now. I mean, usually people who have the houses are pretty happy about them.
Well, they're already on the survey. They're already
They're on the survey. The township. Yeah, you know what?
If they're already on the survey, a new list would not be necessary. It would simply be the best practices and say that any properties identified on the survey. I think Joe would achieve the same thing.
I mean, not all the properties on the survey have been deemed to be historic, though. That's why I was saying.
No, I think it would be the list we submitted with the ones in the twos that we voted on that we thought were
Right.
historic. That's the list we're going to
We
be
take
working
that
from.
list, and then we take, if you would, the guts of the demolition
Yeah.
ordinance and put it into a document called Best Practices for Handling Demolition Requests of Historic Properties, and write that out, and then ask the Board of Supervisors for their consideration in terms of how these could be put into practice.
Okay.
All right, so which one are we doing? Historic properties, a list prepared of historic properties that suggest best practices if owners should apply for a demolition.
Yes, so the motion is that we take the list that we already voted on a while ago, and that we're going to use the same list, and that we're going to develop a list of best practices that we will submit to the Board of Supervisors. Got that right, Joe? Did I say that correctly?
Yes, yes. We're going to do exactly what Resolution 323 says we should do.
No, what we're going to do is he's making a motion that we're going to do best practices, and the best practices that we come up with, whoever does this, Joe, we will bring it back to this commission to vote on before we send it
Yes,
to the Board of
exactly. Yeah,
Supervisors.
they'll be
Okay?
approved by the commission. Yes, they'll be approved by the.
No, it's coming back to us. I think that.
Joe with
maybe-
Jeff's support.
What'd you say?
Oh, Jeff will back him up.
I'm volunteering to support Joe on this.
Woo-hoo! All right. Okay, so Joe will take the lead. Jeff will support him. Joe made the motion. Monica seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Joe's, I'm sorry. Are you and I, Helen? And Dave's got his hand up. So unanimous.
Second.
I did.
Monica. So you got it? Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for making a motion. I'm all about the motions this year. Like there's a dance. I'm getting a little giddy. I haven't been sleeping well. America 250. So at the last meeting, Helen had a long list. I sent it to you. Well, I don't want to say long list, a list of activities that she wanted to propose for America 250. And I think at this point, we need to have a discussion.
The, putting together the burial of the
time capsule,
what?
the time capsule.
Time capsule, yes.
That's what it's called, right? Whatever.
Working.
The thing in Joe's basement.
And it's not going to be very.
Burying the things from Joe's basement.
So large.
It's like this big.
So what volume? I mean, are we talking shoes? Are we talking, I was thinking,
For the record, how many bananas were you demonstrating could fit in there for scale?
on that. He loves this banana costumes, banana everything. Anyway, yeah, so.
You know, you can go onto the Facebook page and there's a picture of us all standing in front of it with all the public people.
Exactly. I was going to say.
Oh my
there's a
God.
picture of us with it. Yep, yep, right.
So I'm working.
It's not small.
On something that would go to the Pennsbury communications person to elementary schools and middle schools for the children to suggest items to be placed in this capsule and telling them how large it is and that we need things that will survive at least 50 years because this capsule will be opened in 50 years. So things like they're very valuable Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Actually, maybe even more valuable 50 years from now when they open. I mean, I know that ones from when my children collected them, they're going through all their stuff. My grandchildren are going through all the stuff looking for those cards because they're really valuable.
If a 6-7 reference ends up in this time capsule, I will resign.
No, it's
Watch what you say.
There might be
Wait
people
for
from it. That's 6-7 in there.
well, listen, yeah.
So Helen, you have a lot of projects on
Mhm.
here and you're now focusing on the time capsule?
But because that is due for April.
Okay, so what I would like us to do is I would like us as a group to decide whether we're going to do this, vote on it, and have people actually commit to doing the work because we vote on a lot of things.
Yeah, and some of it is going to require a lot of people and other things are not.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. This one, I think if we require the person who makes the suggestion to supply the item should not take much in the way of additional help, except for digging the hole and putting the capsule in. And I would suggest that we bury it in Slate Hill Cemetery and near the entrance somewhere and have instructions, publicly printed that it should be dug up in 2076. That's kind of scary to think about, guys. It won't be here.
Yeah. Okay, so is there a motion that the Historical Commission is going to support this time capsule project, which Helen, I think you're committing to taking the lean on the Pensbury thing. So I think that the volunteer labor is essentially just digging the hole in Slate Hill, and I'm sure we can get Joe to do that just to get this thing out of his basement.
I would assume Public Works could help us with that.
I'm sure Public
Yeah.
Works can help us. That is, yeah.
And they'll do it probably better than.
Take a picture.
And we
What?
will
You feel like I
look
can
at
dig
the
a
map
hole?
and make sure we're not burying it on a
Yeah, we've
body.
got the map. We'll do the best we can.
So how long would you say it is, Joe? Like 2 feet, 3 feet?
It's like a big map tube kind of.
Same thing I did.
Yeah,
I would say like 2 feet
Okay.
and
Yeah.
probably almost as much. as
Between 2 and 3,
1.5 by
right?
2.
Yeah. Like I said, there's a picture online.
was
I mean,
like
I
2.
don't know.
We have a picture holding it. I'll find a picture. I'll send it to you.
Thinking about how big the.
Understood.
And-
Yeah.
And Helen, when I get back, I will
how
gladly
many-
drop it off on your
how many
doorstep.
Things I can accept.
So you want to do the time capsule? I'm reading this and it's saying, so you're going to do the outreach.
Yeah.
You're also saying prize for winning submission awarded at BOS meeting with a date on it. So we would have to ask, our liaison and stuff. I mean, I'm sure that the Board of Supervisors would be happy to give little kids awards at a meeting, but we would have to make sure that that is okayed.
Can't speak on behalf of the Board of Supervisors, but I will take the request under advisement.
Thank you.
What do we give to the winner of, who do I take a bunch of people as winners to put them?
Yeah, I think you take a bunch of stuff. Might I recommend,
We choose the best. We can choose the one that we thought was the best idea.
right, I have some suggestions that we can talk about later on how to reach out to the local schools. Because Pensbury has a whole digital way to shoot out information to every single Pensbury family, and we can make it digital, like a way to them to submit their suggestions so that we're not dealing with paper and loose
I would
things.
rather, you would think that would be better than, okay.
Flyers, yeah, the schools really actually don't like flyers. They don't send them home anymore.
There was a problem with it.
Yeah.
You know, that was one of the issues that they were telling me I have to go through communications down in Fallsington, and I was like, ugh.
So if we're talking about just working with the Pensbury school district.
Well, I was thinking you could certainly invite Abrams Seaview Academy and other local, there's one in Makefield Executive Quarters.
Right. Well, here's the thing. Of this list, we only have so much time tonight, and so I don't want to get too deep. I think the time capsule we've been sitting on it. We need to do it. So I am happy to help
Okay,
make sure it gets
And you've had
done, and
better
I can
time
help
with it.
take it to the digital age so we can handle submissions more effectively.
okay.
There's not much more on this list. I'm
So let's-
capable of helping.
Just when we get together, because
Mhm.
it has to be, it has to be something that was survived 50 years. So
So I'm hearing that there's some support for doing the time capsule.
Mhm, mhm.
Do we want to kind of discuss the other things? Because I think the Memorial Day, okay, no, that's the planning of the time capsule.
Mhm.
Or the Flag Day, because I think we need to, start making commitments to this stuff.
doing porta potties and things like that for that.
Okay, so let's go through them one at a time. Would you like to make a motion about the time capsule project?
I move that Helen and I work together to achieve the time capsule planting. Forget the word I should use by Memorial Day.
Yes.
Dave seconds. All in favor? Jeff's up. Helen, I know is a yes. Joe?
Yep.
Joe's a
Yep.
yes.
All right.
Out of my
Time capsule
basement.
is approved.
Okay, now the Flag Day bike race it was supposed to be a bike race, or walking race. Going through the pathway that troops would have exited toward Washington's Crossing. So in other words, up Darlington Road. There's some issues about traffic and crossing major highways like 332 and et cetera. But, or we could just have it go 5 times around, the park or whatever it is. It doesn't have to be something that uses major highways, except I would think Macclesfield would be a nightmare. Then I'd probably suggest North Park as a place to do that kind of a cross-country bike race, I think. But that would have to be laid out. And then Monica says that they have, Township actually has, not you, Monica.
Parks and Rec.
Was saying that they actually have a vendor that will come in and pretty much do the whole thing. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Do the whole thing, the bike race,
The timing, the bid.
permits, everything.
the whole Soup to nuts.
So let's see, do we have support in the commission on this? Because my, one of my concerns is when I've talked to Monica, Park and Rec Monica, briefly about these ideas, she said there's no budget and I'm not sure about the capacity.
Yeah.
And Monica is no longer with the township.
Oh,
Wow.
did that.
Way to bury the lead. Jeez, that sucks.
Couple weeks ago.
Only one Monica. Ah.
The Parks and Rec department reports up to Derek Fuller, the head of Public Works.
Okay, so I have to speak to him now.
Yes.
Here's my take, because we're running out of time and I'm out at 9.
Yep.
I love this idea. I do not understand how it gets done in the handful of months that we have in the way that it's stated. We don't have a budget. We don't have support. We were trying to plan big things like this years ago, and we're basically told we were on our own, and all of us were like, I don't have the capacity for that. So I love this, Helen, and I love constantly saying like, yeah, do it. But if it comes down to you doing it alone and the one person that's been backing you up is suddenly gone, I loved when you talked about originally, you said like LMT, make sure Flag Day, tell everyone to fly their flags, like that kind of stuff is easy to push out and get people supported, but to manage a bike race and everything that's involved in it and reach out to the historic houses, like who's doing all of that work? That's my problem. I don't know. And that's been the problem from the beginning with all of these things. When we brainstormed literally 2 years ago, remember, it was like, sky's the limit, we'll get budget. We were just coming up with ideas. And then the township came back and said, cool, do what you want. And we were like, no, okay. And then I told the commission, I'm happy to produce any of these, but I will need to be hired as a contractor because this is beyond the scope of volunteer work, which we can't, and that's fine. I don't expect that. But I don't see how this is done. I mean, the ghost tour alone takes me out for like a month, and that's a one-night event that we've done multiple times. So any of these big events, that's the way I feel. I feel like there's a bunch of things on here that are not big, that are doable and awesome. The reading the Declaration of Independence, but those books, I love that. I think that's awesome.
That's easy to do. You're right.
You know,
Labor Day was part of the parade that we normally have.
Mhm.
That
Yes,
one can be
using the
so
old book.
really-
Yeah, to me, number 3 and number 8, as amazing as they are, I do not see how they're physically possible.
Well, 8 is still on the maybe list. I can agree with you with number 3.
Okay.
I think it's getting too close to.
Yeah, so
have-
we have support for the time capsule. We can hold off on voting on number 8 give you a little bit more time. I think that's reasonable. We've already said we were going to kind of specialize the ghost tour this year. I don't know about expanded because we don't really have capacity to expand anymore, because nobody's necessarily willing to do a whole weekend of it.
Yeah, that's the hard part.
We are going to do a different sort of focus. I think the July 4th thing, what I would suggest is, why don't maybe, I think July 4th is a tough date to do things. People do like their barbecues and stuff.
A whole big turnout.
Maybe doing something at a Board of Supervisors night meeting or something and having the kids come in and do that or something. Like, I'm not against it. I don't think July 4th is the best day to do it, even though it's very symbolic, and I appreciate that.
Talk to the new head.
Yeah,
And see how he feels about these things, and then, and what he prefers. or-
Derek's not the new head. He's always been the head, and he's like the head of like a gazillion things, including IT. I just found out.
I don't know. I think that's a big question. I will say Washington's Crossing does a reading of the Declaration on July 4th every year. Washington's Crossing.
Yeah, I know, yeah.
So I do worry about doing it the same day just because people that are really into that kind of thing are going to be going to Washington's Crossing. But either way, I think we're getting into details. I think it's awesome if we can get someone to read it somewhere publicly on a relatively public day is really cool. I love it.
I also think there's like reading things. You had brought up Board of Supervisors meetings. You know, I'm happy to champion making small things a part of the Board of Supervisors meetings throughout the year, right? You know, if there are relevant selections of things from Lower Makefield's history
Mhm.
that we could get read, you know, so I mean, I'm all about doing small things to make this happen.
Mhm.
We're in the year of 250 right now, or at least approaching it, right? It starts July 4th or so.
To have Peter Van Sant, who is the head of our local militia, read that.
We have a militia.
We did. No, did. We're talking about, and Peter's long dead. But in our hearts, he's still here.
Press on it.
We will if there's an ordinance.
So can, I'm sorry, Helen, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but can we leave it at, we approve the one and that you maybe can also coordinate with Colin getting some little events in at the Board of Supervisors with the kids, to kind of, yeah, do some of this stuff. Maybe have them read some of Moon's diary, since we're talking so much about Moon's diary.
That'd be wonderful.
Yeah, I think somebody would have to transcribe it a little bit better than it is.
Talk to my friend down at Gather Place about that as well.
Good.
So that should follow.
Okay.
This diary is about maybe going to visit areas. It really is fascinating. It was done by one of the Snipes or one of the Moons. Writing in he was sitting there and he went through his father's safe and he took bottom of it.
And Helen, we got to get Monica out of here, so I'm going to bring us back to the agenda. Do we feel okay with 250?
Yes,
Where we're at right now? Okay.
Thank
Good.
you, Helen.
Thank
you
you,
for
Helen.
the work. Really.
Yeah, I mean, I do very much appreciate your passion.
You're making things happen. Thank you.
Yep.
Craziness, yes.
Well, that's,
That's what it takes.
you need passion in this preservation field to make things happen. That I agree, and you do have that. Monica, is there anything on Slate Hill? I wasn't really sure.
No, I know. I noticed, as you told me, and I saw it, a tree got cut down. I don't know who did that or why, but I must have been Pico or something. It's over by
Yeah,
the
my-
side.
Like,
Well, no, I guess it
No.
was funny because my wife drove by one day and texted me, somebody's in your cemetery cutting down trees. Obviously, I know it's not my cemetery. I don't want anybody to think I'm taking responsibility that it's my cemetery. We only use that word in my house. Yeah, she said it looked like the Pico people that took a tree down in our yard, so. Anyway. All right, so maybe you can coordinate with Monica offline about the Eagle Scout project. I don't want them doing a big path project again.
I don't know what I have.
I'm sure we can find a small project.
he needs to write it up. That's what the problem is. 'Cause
Okay.
He's turning 18 very quickly.
I understand, but the anxiety and lack of executive functioning of 18-year-old Eagle Scouts is not my problem anymore.
Snow has certainly held him up.
It was when it was my neighbor.
Mhm.
I can briefly touch base with.
Yeah, why don't we can do that at the end. Any other discussion items? Okay,
Next meeting?
public comment, no public. Next meeting, March 11th at 7:30. Motion to adjourn. Jeff makes a motion to adjourn. Dave second, all in favor?
Mm.
Good night, and we got it out before 9 o'clock. Thank you.
Good everyone.
Boy.
Suck you in, Dave.